Chef Julia Dunaway, and I make whole food plant-based dishes that I think taste really good. And not only are they healthy, but people generally will tell me they really enjoy eating my food. And they've even converted over people in their family who weren't even interested in being plant-based. So I count that as something really positive. And everything I make may not seem to be in the super, super healthy end of whole food plant-based cooking, but sometimes we need a special treat. And so I'm trying to make things that I used to use as a kind of a baked good or a treat taste good, but use whole food plant-based ingredients. So today I'm making chocolate and macadamia banana bread. And I have a banana bread recipe that I'm known for. It's called Hippie Banana Bread. And I think there's a YouTube video on it. I'm pretty sure there is. And this is similar, but I've made some changes because over the past couple years, I've experimented with things and learned how to use, let's say, dates and date syrup instead of sugar and cane sugar, and not using as much maple syrup. So I think this is a better recipe as far as for my taste, because I'm trying to get away from excessively sweet things, and also using ripe bananas is important. So I have my ingredients over here. You can see I'm using whole wheat pastry flour, which is not hard to find anymore. It was hard kind of during the pandemic. Almond flour, date lady syrup, date lady sugar, so date sugar. I'm using some almond butter that has nothing but almonds in it, no added ingredients, no oils, no other things. I'm using apple butter. Just apple butter can have nothing in it, but just apples. This one I think does have a little sugar, but you can find some without it. And then over here I'm using some El Rey chocolate. I get it from Chocolates El Rey in Fredericksburg, Texas, and I order it online, and it's the best chocolate. You can see this is a huge, it's like a 3-pound bag. I need to order some more. And then I have some macadamia nuts I got at the grocery store, and I've chopped them up. So this is different from my normal hippie banana bread. The big difference being it has chocolate and it has the macadamia nuts. And I'm going to mash up some bananas. If you don't really like chocolate and you're watching this and you're saying, oh, I don't want to use chocolate, you can just make this regular banana bread with nothing in it but bananas. You don't have to add chocolate. You can add, let's say you like dried fruit. Add some dried fruit instead of chocolate. Because my other recipe had like raisins, cranberries, any kind of dried fruit that you like. So feel free to modify it, but then go back to that recipe. The same with the macadamia nuts. I made this banana bread for a class called Plant-Based Hawaiian Favorites. So that's why I made this version, because it was kind of a Hawaiian theme, and I thought there was some kind of Hawaiian dish like this when I went to Hawaii. So I thought that sounded very, Hawaiian to me at the time. So if you're interested in that class, you can go to my website, chef-julia.com, and I'll put a link in the show notes to the class, Plant-Based Hawaiian Favorites, because it has a lot of good recipes. Besides this one in there, it has that omusubi, like it's made with Spam in Hawaii, but I made a version with tofu. And my tofu version, from what people told me that made it, they said it was really good. In fact, some people said they liked it better than when they used to eat the meat version, and it had the real Spam in it. So I thought that was pretty good, that they liked the tofu better. Okay, see, that turned out to be 1 cup of mashed bananas, and that's what the recipe calls for. So when a lot of the recipes will say 3 medium bananas, but then you don't really know how much is 3 medium bananas. So I like it when you can have a measurement, and my measurement is 1 cup of mashed bananas. So that was 2 bananas, but look at the size of these bananas. They're kind of gigantic. And also, the darker and more ripe your bananas are, the better this bread will taste, because they get really sweet when they get ripe. And I've had the issue where, since we're not using a lot of sugar and stuff, and maple syrup and all that stuff in my recipes, that if you think you can make it sweet enough and not use really ripe bananas, what ends up happening is you get banana bread that's not very sweet. I need to get a spoon from over here. So I'm going to measure out my flour. This is my whole wheat pastry flour, and I'm going to measure it out the way I'd like you to measure it out, which is to spoon it into your cup. Of course, the most accurate way to measure dry ingredients is with a scale. And then we're just going to smooth the top over. That's 1 cup. We're going to get a 1/2 cup, so it's 1 1/2 cups. But most people don't weigh their ingredients. That's kind of more of a professional chef thing. So short of that, we have to figure out how to weigh things and measure things accurately. So by spooning it into the cup and leveling it off, it's more accurate than if you were to scoop it into the flour. When you scoop it into the flour and you kind of level it by shaking it, you end up getting a lot more than you thought. Okay, then I'm going to use just regular old baking soda, and I already have that measured out, a teaspoon of that. Then we're going to put in a teaspoon of salt. I use kosher salt on everything, that's what that is. My whisk ready. And I'm not sifting. Back in home ec 50 years ago, we learned to sift things. It literally was 50 years ago. I got a notice that my high school reunion is this year, 50th high school reunion. So I was in home ec and we had to sift everything with an old-fashioned sifter. But now the easier way to do it is just take a whisk and whisk your things together. You don't need to sift it. So that was a 1/2 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. So this is the dry ingredients. I'm just going to have it in this bowl and set it aside. So yeah, use your whisk. But if you have grandma's sifter around and you want to use it, feel free. So in this, the wet ingredients, we're going to put in our apple butter. Remember, I used a jar of apple butter, but you can get some at Whole Foods. I think Whole Foods has the one that's completely sugar-free. This one has a light, very small amount of sugar in it, so I'm okay with that. And then we're going to put in some almond butter, and this is 1/4 cup of almond butter. And I use this brand that I kind of like. It's one that hasn't been out that long, or I haven't seen it out that long. It's called Fix and Fog. And you have to be careful because this one only has dry roasted almonds and a little New Zealand sea salt, but some of the Fix and Fog almond and peanut butters have added oil, which I didn't even know. Oh, I forgot something. In your dry ingredients, there's a 1/2 cup of almond flour. Okay, forgot about that. So that was already measured out. So, and it comes in a bag like this, or it's sold in the bulk section. So back to the almond butter. I bought some almond butter from that brand, and I didn't realize it, but I looked at the label later, and it said it had oil added, like sunflower oil. I was like, I don't use oil in my whole food plant-based way of eating. Okay, I have a 1/4 cup of date syrup. This is from the Date Lady date syrup, which I really like that brand. And it's in my Amazon store. So I have a lot of these things in my Amazon store, all the Date Lady products, all the date sugars. This was the date syrup. Look how big this is. This is a 48-ounce container. And I go through these all the time because I use them for baking and everything. And the date sugar is in that kind of packaging. It's hard to find this date sugar in the grocery stores. Which reminds me, I'm going to go ahead and add the date sugar, 1/2 cup. And with this date sugar, since it's just ground up dates, sometimes it has lumps in it. But they usually dissolve really easily. So just be sure you mash them out. They're not hard lumps. They're just since it's ground dates, they sometimes just stick together. It's not a big deal. All right, so we mix up the wet ingredients. And then I'm going to add some vanilla. We're going to add the bananas last. So I have about 1.5 teaspoons of just vanilla extract, just your common everyday vanilla extract or whatever kind you like. And then we have another ingredient. I'm using flax, ground flax seeds that I've mixed with some water. So I have 2 tablespoons of ground flaxseed mixed with 6 tablespoons of water. In my earlier recipes for hippie banana bread, I used aquafaba, which was the juice from chickpeas. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you have one of my old recipes for hippie banana bread and it has, it talks about aquafaba, the juice of the chickpeas, you know, that's perfectly fine. That works too. But this was my flax seed mixed with water. And that kind of develops after you let it sit for 10 minutes, which is what it had been sitting here for about 10 minutes. It develops kind of an eggy consistency, and it works as a leavening agent. So when you make your baked good, it kind of helps it be a little fluffier than if you didn't have it. And the same thing is with the aquafaba. It just, you know, adds that nice little lightness. And then we'll throw in our mashed bananas. Remember, a cup, not necessarily 3 bananas, because 3 of these giant bananas, you'd end up with more than a cup, and then that might mess up your recipe, right? So we just want to mix those bananas in, and then we have our dry ingredients over here that we've whisked together. I'm going to whisk it again because I added that almond flour that I forgot about. And you know, just like all these quick breads. Hey Jiro, what you doing? My little assistant Jiro stopped by to say hello. Come here. To say hi? I don't think they can see you. I can't pick you up anymore. You weigh about 1 million pounds. He went from being the sweet little puppy that helped me with my videos that I could pick up to being a 50-pound, 7-month-old. I have a feeling he's going to be very big. All right, so I'm going to put the mixture with the bananas and the almond butter and the apples, butter, and all those ingredients in here. And it's funny because when people taste this, they're always so amazed that it's plant-based, no oil, but it tastes really good. They're like, how could you make this dessert or this bread or whatever, and you're not using any eggs, you're not using any butter, you're not using any of the traditional ingredients, and not sugar, just date syrup. You know, how could you be using all those ingredients and it tastes so good? They just don't understand. Well, you know, you don't have to use all those things. You can make really good baked goods with plant-based ingredients, and, you know, instead of using oil, use apple butter. Now, the almond butter does provide that little bit of fat, but if you really didn't want to use almond butter, you could just add extra apple butter. And I've had people use applesauce instead of apple butter. So this is a very forgiving recipe. You can make all kinds of modifications to it if you want. It usually comes out really well. And then last but not least, we add our macadamia nuts. We'll save a few for the top, and we'll do the same with the chocolate. I've taken those chocolate discs from the El Rey chocolate, and I know, I'm going to put some discs on top, so I'm going to just put the whole discs on the top instead of little pieces. That was about half a cup. So in the scheme of things, there's not a lot of chocolate in this macadamia chocolate banana bread. It could be a lot more, so I don't think it's terrible. But you could eat a piece of this and not feel like you're getting much chocolate at all. So it's not like it's loaded with chocolate chunks or anything. And the chocolate, 70% chocolate isn't sugar-free. I've had people ask me about that. They're like, oh, well, you know, is there sugar in it? Well, yes, because if the chocolate had no sugar in it, it would be 100% unsweetened chocolate, which is pretty much inedible unless you add a ton of sugar to it. Remember back in my mom baking days when my kids were little, we made brownies and stuff with Hershey's or Baker's unsweetened chocolate. That stuff was inedible, and we would add 2 cups of sugar to the one recipe of brownies. So the fact that this chocolate has 70% chocolate, it does have an amount of sugar, but it's not so much compared to what, you know, it could have been. Okay, so I'm going to load this up into my parchment paper lined 9x5 loaf pan. And even if you use a non-stick loaf pan, like I have USA loaf pans and different ones, it doesn't really matter. It's all possible that it's going to stick. I got a little bit uneven. It could stick no matter what it says, even if it says a non-stick pan. You know, don't believe it, because I've had some of these USA pans that are non-stick, and I loaded them up with my muffin batter, cake batter, whatever batter, and then tried to get it out and it stuck. So after that happened to me a couple times with the supposed 100% non-stick pans, I said, nah, as added insurance, I'm gonna go ahead and use my parchment paper. It doesn't take long to cut it to fit. As you can see, I cut one long piece and one other piece so they kind of overlap. And then for the finishing touch, I like to reserve a little bit of the macadamia nuts. Otherwise you won't see them because they get kind of swallowed up by the batter. So I'll put a few of those on top. And then what I do with the chocolate is I can sort of decorate the top with the chocolate. So I just get, and you see these are the discs. There's some of them are smaller and some of them are bigger. So I'll just put the different size ones and just kind of scatter them around the top. And these will be all nice and melty. And it just makes it look, when you look at it, you know you're getting this, you know, chocolate thing. There's no doubt about it that there's chocolate in it, which I kind of like that. And in fact, what's funny is because the bread is sweetened with date syrup, it already looks kind of like chocolate in color, but that's not chocolate, that's just date syrup. So I was thinking another thing about this is, what if you put cacao powder in here and you wanted like a double chocolate banana bread? So think about that, add a tablespoon of cacao powder, and that would amplify the chocolate. So we're gonna put this in a 350-degree oven, and we're going to keep it in here for 50 minutes. And I came up with 50 minutes because I have made this over and over and over. And if you go longer than that, it dries it out. If you don't go that long, it might not be done all the way through, and you're going to use a toothpick test. So what I do is I set it for 50 minutes, and at 50 minutes I check it, and when that toothpick comes out clean, I know it's ready. So we're going to come back when the banana bread is done, and you can see what it looks like. So be right back. Okay, it's out of the oven. It smells so good. I've had it on the cooling rack for a few minutes so I could handle it. I did my toothpick test. The toothpick came out clean. Be sure you don't poke it through some chocolate because then it'll have melted chocolate on it, and then it won't look clean. And the reason we have these nice parchment papers is that way we can just lift it right out. And be aware the chocolate on the top is going to be very melty for quite a while. So you can just leave it alone and let it kind of naturally harden as it dries, or you can put it in the refrigerator. And if you put it in the refrigerator, the chocolate will set up. So however you want to do it. But basically that's it. This is the beautiful chocolate macadamia banana bread. Let it cool a little bit before you slice it. It's always good to let it cool completely before you slice it. Otherwise, the slices will start falling apart. So cool it for a long time before you slice it. And then we'll come back and slice it up and test it, see how it is. So I hope you make this. And remember, you can add whatever ingredients you like, but I hope you make this version as soon as possible. Okay. It's had plenty of time to cool. Now it's time to cut into it and taste it. See how it looks inside? Well, it looks perfect. That's an end piece, so and the chocolate is sticking to my finger. So I don't think the end piece is going to be the one I try. So I'm going to cut one more piece. Nothing wrong with the end piece, but I like the internal pieces better. Here we go. All right, I'm going to set this down over here. And how do we know it's any good? Well, just have to pick it up and taste it. It's cooked all the way through. It's fluffy. Not dry. Perfect amount of sweetness. I think you'll really like this chocolate macadamia nut banana bread. Make it, use whatever ingredients you like if you don't like chocolate, but make this one time and I hope you really enjoy it. I really love it. Can't wait to eat the rest of this piece. Bye-bye for now. Subscribe to my channel and go to my website, chef-julia.com, for recipes, links to my ebooks, and anything else you need to know about me. Thank you. Bye-bye.